What happens when imagination crosses the line? Cartoons, meant to bring joy and laughter, sometimes stumbled into shadows darker than anyone expected. Some shows were silenced after a single breath of life, their stories erased almost instantly. Today, we'll dive into 20 rare cartoons that were banned after airing just one episode, and the shocking reasons why. Garbage Pail Kids, 1987. In the late 1980s, toy-inspired cartoons were everywhere. But when CBS premiered Garbage Pail Kids, based on the infamous trading cards, parents were horrified. Instead of fun adventures, the show paraded grotesque characters with exaggerated deformities, toilet humor, and a rebellious tone that mocked authority. Parents' groups and watchdog organizations didn't just complain, they launched a campaign to yank the show from air immediately. Advertisers quickly fled, fearing association with a brand deemed anti-family and offensive to children. What shocked many was that the show wasn't merely bizarre, it was also politically satirical. Characters parodied real-life celebrities, government agencies, and even poked fun at social issues. For Saturday morning viewers, it was simply too much. Despite completing 13 episodes, only one aired before the network caved under immense pressure. The series was quickly shelved, whispered about by kids on playgrounds who had glimpsed its chaotic style. Today, Garbage Pail Kids is remembered as a victim of moral panic, too strange and subversive to survive. The cartoon's single broadcast became its own legend, proving that sometimes controversy eclipses creativity. Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, 1962, re-aired in 1977. At first glance, this adaptation of Dickens's classic shouldn't raise eyebrows. It was even praised as heartfelt. But in 1977, a re-airing of the cartoon stirred outrage for a shocking reason. Magoo, a character defined by his severe nearsightedness, was accused of mocking blindness. Disability advocates condemned the depiction, saying it turned impairment into comedy. Networks grew skittish, fearing backlash and lawsuits. The cartoon was abruptly pulled from rotation after only one re-airing, relegating it to obscurity until home video revived it decades later. Behind the scenes, executives debated whether Magoo's portrayal was satire or cruelty, but the damage was done. The irony is that this cartoon was beautifully animated and filled with soulful music, praised as one of the first animated Christmas specials. Yet one episode and one ill-timed re-airing was enough to bury it. Today, it exists in a strange limbo, celebrated by some as classic art, condemned by others as outdated insensitivity. The Snorks, The Lost Reef, 1989. The Snorks were often seen as Hanna-Barbera's answer to the Smurfs, colorful underwater creatures living in harmony. But one episode, The Lost Reef, never swam far. After its premiere, complaints poured in about its surprisingly dark undertones. The story depicted entire communities of Snorks wiped out in a reef war, with haunting scenes of destroyed homes and orphaned children. Parents accused the episode of being far too grim for Saturday mornings, bordering on traumatic. The animation included unsettling visuals of sea creatures caught in nets and drowned villages, images eerily close to real-world disasters. What made it worse? The episode aired during an environmental campaign, unintentionally drawing parallels to oil spills and industrial fishing scandals. Networks pulled the episode after just one showing, declaring it too intense for family viewing. For fans, The Lost Reef became a forbidden memory, a cautionary tale about how even cartoons meant for kids could drift into unexpectedly tragic waters. Cow and Chicken, Buffalo Gals, 1998. By the late 1990s, Cartoon Network was known for its edgy humor, but Cow and Chicken went a step too far. The episode Buffalo Gals introduced a group of tough women on motorcycles who break into people's homes and chew on their carpets. Almost immediately, advocacy groups noticed the thinly veiled lesbian stereotype. The phrase carpet chewing was criticized as offensive innuendo, and complaints flooded in about portraying queer women as destructive, masculine bullies. Cartoon Network panicked, pulling the episode after its single broadcast. Behind the scenes, animators claimed they were making a tongue-in-cheek parody, not a statement on sexuality. But executives refused to take the risk. The episode became infamous, whispered about in fan circles, and resurfacing online decades later as a cult curiosity. For many, Buffalo Gals is both a symbol of censorship and a reminder of how coded representation, intentional or not, can stir cultural firestorms. It lasted just one night on air, but forever altered the way networks scrutinized cartoons. Adventure Time. Trouble in Lumpy Space, 2010. At first glance, Adventure Time seemed untouchable, a quirky, beloved series praised for its surreal world-building. But the episode Trouble in Lumpy Space stirred up more backlash than expected. What was meant as a light-hearted romp with Lumpy Space Princess devolved into a story filled with questionable undertones. The controversy stemmed from dialogue and imagery critics argued leaned too heavily on mocking disabilities and body image. Lumpy Space Princess's exaggerated speech patterns, erratic behavior, and lumpy form were seen as coded insults. Parents accused the episode of encouraging kids to laugh at those who spoke differently or had unusual appearances. Though it aired once, networks faced a flood of angry letters. Behind the scenes, Cartoon Network debated whether it was satire or insensitivity. Ultimately, they decided not to rerun the episode on certain regional networks, effectively banning it from circulation in parts of the U.S. and abroad. For a show that prided itself on inclusivity and oddball charm, this misstep was both ironic and revealing. Fans who caught the episode live still debate whether it was harmless silliness or something darker. But its swift disappearance shows how even the most inventive modern cartoons could stumble into the same censorship traps that haunted earlier decades. Family Guy, Partial Terms of Endearment, 2010. Though Family Guy thrived on controversy, one episode was too hot to handle. Partial Terms of Endearment tackled abortion, a topic no primetime cartoon had dared address directly. In the story, Lois agrees to be a surrogate, only to face complications that bring the issue front and center. Fox aired the episode just once before pulling it from broadcast. Advertisers panicked, fearing association with one of the most divisive debates in American culture. Conservative watchdogs accused the show of trivializing a deeply sensitive subject, while liberal voices argued the satire cut too harshly. Behind the curtain, even Family Guy's own creative team admitted they were shocked it ever made it to air. The backlash was immediate, intense, and politically charged. Eventually, the episode found life on DVD and streaming platforms, but never returned to television. Its ban raised a bigger question. Can comedy safely tackle taboo subjects, or are some topics destined to be untouchable? In the case of Family Guy, the network's answer was clear. Sometimes even boundary-pushing cartoons cross a threshold that can't be walked back. Pokémon, Electric Soldier Porygon, 1997. Few banned cartoons reached global infamy like this one. In Electric Soldier Porygon, Ash and Pikachu are transported into cyberspace. But during a battle scene, rapid red and blue strobe effects filled the screen, unintentionally triggering seizures in hundreds of children across Japan. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. News outlets around the world reported the medical emergency, with parents demanding accountability. Pokémon was briefly pulled off the air entirely, and Nintendo's stock value even dipped from the scandal. Although doctors confirmed it was the flashing animation, not Porygon itself, that caused the seizures, the Pokémon was effectively blacklisted. Despite being a central figure in the episode, Porygon has rarely appeared in the franchise since. The episode was banned from reruns globally after its first broadcast. For many, this moment was a chilling reminder of the unintended consequences of animation. What began as a fantastical adventure left real scars, both for the children affected and for the show's legacy. Even today, Electric Soldier Porygon is synonymous with one of the most shocking cartoon controversies in history. The Simpsons, Stark Raving Dad, 1991. The Simpsons was already known for testing boundaries, but Stark Raving Dad became one of the rare episodes banned after its first showing. In it, Homer is sent to a mental institution where he meets a man who believes he's Michael Jackson, voiced by Jackson himself. At the time, the episode was celebrated as clever and surreal, blending satire with heartfelt music. But decades later, following renewed allegations against Jackson in the Leaving Neverland documentary, the episode was pulled from circulation worldwide. Disney and Fox both removed it from streaming libraries and syndication packages, effectively erasing it from the canon. Creators Matt Groening and James L. Brooks admitted it was a painful choice, but one they believed necessary to protect the show's legacy. The ban sparked debate among fans. Was it fair to erase a cultural artifact because of the artist behind it? Or was it a necessary act of accountability? Regardless, Stark Raving Dad became one of television's most infamous, lost episodes, proof that even the longest-running cartoon in history wasn't immune to censorship's final word. Freakazoid, Hero Boy, 1995. Freakazoid was a cult classic from the Warner Brothers animation boom, famous for its manic humor and meta-jokes. But one episode, Hero Boy, was so unsettling that it was yanked after a single airing. The parody centered on a fictional in-universe cartoon called Hero Boy, which mocked superhero tropes by showing a disturbingly naive child crusader manipulated by adults. The satire, however, leaned heavily on imagery of child endangerment. Hero Boy was portrayed as a kid left vulnerable to criminals, often beaten, mocked, and put in perilous situations. Parents immediately complained, arguing the episode wasn't funny, but exploitative. For Saturday morning audiences, the tone was jarring, less parody, more nightmare fuel. Some critics went further, accusing the episode of parodying child abuse in a way that crossed a moral line. WB pulled it quickly, fearing damage to the series' already fragile ratings. For years, Hero Boy became a whispered legend, surfacing only on rare VHS recordings. Fans debate whether it was brilliant satire or an uncomfortable miscalculation. Either way, it showed that even cartoons designed for clever adults couldn't always outwit the censors. SpongeBob SquarePants, Midlife Crustacean, 2003. SpongeBob SquarePants was usually considered safe, family-friendly fare. But the episode Midlife Crustacean sent shockwaves when it aired in 2003. The story followed Mr. Krabs having a midlife crisis, joining SpongeBob and Patrick for a wild night out. The controversy came during the infamous panty raid scene. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs sneak into a woman's house, only for it to be revealed as Mr. Krabs' mother. What was meant as silly embarrassment instead drew sharp criticism. Parents accused the show of promoting sexual innuendo to children. Nickelodeon quickly shelved the episode, refusing to rerun it. In 2018, it was officially banned from broadcast and streaming platforms, vanishing from circulation. For fans, the loss was shocking, as the episode contained otherwise harmless jokes and classic SpongeBob humor. The legacy of Midlife Crustacean lies in its reminder that even the world's most famous sponge wasn't immune to missteps. A single gag was enough to sink an episode permanently, proof that children's programming walks a razor-thin line between edgy and unacceptable. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the Lost Episode, 1983. He-Man was one of the defining cartoons of the 1980s, designed to sell toys while delivering moral lessons. But one unaired episode, dubbed the Lost Episode by fans, slipped onto television in select markets only once before being yanked. The plot centered on Skeletor launching an attack that left villages burning, families displaced, and children crying for help. The imagery, flames, destruction, even implied death, was too intense for younger audiences. Test screenings had already raised red flags, but when it accidentally aired in syndication, complaints rolled in. Behind the scenes, Filmation's writers admitted they wanted to add gritty realism to the show, pushing He-Man into darker storytelling. But for parents who tuned in expecting bright, campy adventures, the grim tone was unacceptable. Networks immediately removed it from rotation, and the episode was quietly buried. Collectors still debate whether the footage was intentional or accidental, but its impact is undeniable. For a franchise built on campy slogans like "I have the power," the sudden dive into despair was too much to bear. Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips, 1944. During World War II, cartoons often doubled as propaganda. But Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips stands as one of the most controversial examples. Meant to rally American audiences, the short depicted Bugs battling Japanese soldiers in Hawaii. While it may have been tolerated in 1944, the cartoon was shocking to later generations. The depictions of Japanese characters were steeped in racist caricatures, buck teeth, exaggerated accents, and humiliating stereotypes. When Warner Brothers attempted to re-air the short decades later, the backlash was immediate. Networks banned it after a single broadcast, locking it in the so-called Censored 11, a group of cartoons deemed too offensive for modern audiences. Peppa Pig, Mr. Skinnylegs, 2004. Peppa Pig became a global phenomenon, adored for its simplicity and gentle humor. But in 2004, an episode called Mr. Skinnylegs caused a storm, especially in Australia. The story seemed innocent enough. Peppa and George play with a spider in their house, naming him Mr. Skinnylegs and learning that spiders are harmless. While harmless in the UK, the message was dangerously misleading in countries like Australia, where venomous spiders can be deadly. Parents and educators erupted in outrage. Teaching children not to fear spiders, they argued, could literally put kids' lives at risk. Networks pulled the episode after one airing, banning it from Australian broadcasts permanently. The controversy turned a sweet, silly story into a cautionary tale about how cultural differences shape censorship. What's safe in one country may be life-threatening in another. For Peppa Pig, the ban proved that even the gentlest cartoons can wander into unintended danger. Tom and Jerry, Mouse Cleaning, 1948, re-aired 1960s. Few cartoons are more beloved than Tom and Jerry, but even this classic duo wasn't immune from censorship. The episode Mouse Cleaning showed Tom attempting to clean the house after Jerry sabotages him with a mud bath. The problem wasn't the slapstick, it was the shocking use of blackface gags. At one point, Tom is covered in soot and begins imitating racist caricatures common in mid-century America. For decades, the episode resurfaced in reruns, but during the Civil Rights era, its ugliness became impossible to ignore. Networks pulled it after a single rerun, banning it from syndication entirely. Warner Brothers later admitted the cartoon belonged to a shameful chapter of animation history. Today, it exists only in archives and rare collections, often accompanied by disclaimers about its offensive imagery. For fans, Mouse Cleaning remains a sobering reminder. Even childhood favorites carry shadows. What once passed as humor now exposes painful truths about prejudice embedded in entertainment. Mighty Mouse, The Littlest Tramp, 1988. Mighty Mouse. The New Adventures was an acclaimed reboot, helmed by animator Ralph Bakshi, known for his bold, adult-oriented style. But the episode The Littlest Tramp unleashed one of the strangest controversies in animation history. In it, Mighty Mouse is shown sniffing a crushed flower to regain his strength. To Bakshi, it was symbolic, a nod to resilience and innocence. But critics saw something very different. They accused the show of depicting cocaine use in a children's cartoon. The backlash was immediate. Religious groups, parents' organizations, and media watchdogs attacked CBS for airing what they believed was a veiled drug reference. Though Bakshi defended the symbolism and swore no such intent existed, the damage was done. The episode was pulled after just one airing, and Mighty Mouse's reputation was never the same. Looking back, it's almost absurd that a flower could ignite such fury. Yet it speaks volumes about the paranoia of the late 1980s, when cartoons were constantly scrutinized for hidden, subliminal messages. The result was the premature death of a daring, experimental series. The Boondocks. The Hunger Strike, 2008. The Boondocks was already notorious for its sharp political satire, but the hunger strike went so far that it was banned after one airing. The episode targeted BET, Black Entertainment Television, accusing it of exploiting African American audiences while perpetuating stereotypes. In the story, Huey Freeman stages a hunger strike to protest BET's influence. The satire was razor-sharp, naming real executives and tearing apart the network's leadership. BET executives threatened lawsuits, accusing creator Aaron Magruder of defamation. Though it aired once, the controversy was explosive. Networks quickly pulled the episode, locking it away for years. Fans who caught it live considered it one of the boldest moments in television history, an unflinching critique that dared to speak truth to power. Today, the hunger strike is remembered as both a casualty of corporate pressure and a testament to Magruder's fearless storytelling. One episode was enough to prove how dangerous satire can be when it cuts too close to home. Cartoons are supposed to entertain, but as we've seen, some cross lines that can't be ignored. From propaganda to politics, from satire to sheer mistakes, these one-episode bans reveal just how fragile animation's legacy can be. Which of these shocked you most? Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.